If giving a TEDx talk is on your bucket list, you've made it to the right video because I'm going to tell you every single thing you need to know about how to go from application to stage from someone who did it within the last year. If you're new here, hi, I'm Jade Walters, a 2025 TEDx speaker where I gave a TED talk titled, I Have a Career I Made Up, Here's How You Can Too, where I talked about my journey of designing my dream career. So as we go through the video, I'm going to weave in some of the lessons that I've learned, tips that I have, as well as some questions that I got from my audience about the whole TEDx process. So for anyone who's new to the whole TED landscape, there's a difference between TED and TEDx. TED is the overarching organization. And I think in the early 2000s, they launched TEDx, which are independent TED events. So this can be held in different countries, different cities, and they're independently owned TED events that hold that TED licensing. So for me, I did a TEDx in Montclair. So mine was in Montclair, New Jersey. So starting off with my TED story, like many people who are interested in giving a TED talk, I grew up watching TED Talks. I loved them. I always dreamt of giving one, but I didn't necessarily have a timeline of when I was going to do that. But in 2024, I was invited by the TED team to attend TED Next. So TED Next is a new conference that they launched in 2024 that really sits in between the TEDx events that you may go to locally and then the larger TED event that is in Canada every year. It's a 3-day conference that is held in Atlanta. And for this one, you're going to be able to watch some of like actual TED Talks, like people actually performing, but then there's also different sessions for you to attend on different topics and where you can learn more about Atlanta, learn more about TED, or just have very, very niche interests. For me in 2024, I didn't really get to attend all of those niche events. But in 2025, I was invited again to be a part of the TED creator cohort for TED Next. And I think the coolest thing too is that I had built this community the year before. So I was seeing so many familiar faces that I met in 2024, in 2025. And since then, I've really been immersed in that community. Literally one of the best conferences that I've ever been to. And I'm not just saying that. Usually for me as a creator, some of the conferences I've been to have been in the tech space, but this one was different. It had people from different industries and different niches and just different walks of life, sharing their journey, sharing their stories. That was my first time actually in Atlanta, so it was really cool. And being at that conference, it was very timely for me because I was at a point in my career where the dream job that I had was just it was not giving dream job anymore. And I was really toying with the idea of becoming a full-time creator and quitting my job. And that was something that was so scary to me. And being in TED, I left feeling so inspired. I was like, yeah, I'm about to change my life. So that was in October of 2024. So it was January 2025 where I was like, yeah, like I was holding on to the inspiration that I had from being in the TED events and just being in that environment. And I quit my job. And throughout 2025, I was able to be a full-time content creator, which is something my younger self would have loved to do. It was during my time at the 2024 conference when I realized that I actually wanted to give a TED talk. And when I came across my TEDx Montclair opportunity, I wasn't necessarily looking for TEDx opportunities to apply for, but it was just so serpentitious about how it came across my timeline. I actually knew one of the organizers who was running the event, and I didn't know her too well, but I knew her and I saw her post about it because at this time too, I was also doing a lot more speaking engagements and meeting new people and just strengthening my skill as a speaker. So I saw me giving a TEDx talk as like the next step. Let's discuss the application process. So for me at that time, I had really already decided, okay, I want to give a TEDx talk, but honestly, I didn't really go looking for TEDx talks to apply to. The one that I found with TEDx Montclair, it was very, very like a line of how it came about because it found me. I found the opportunity on LinkedIn. I was actually connected with one of the organizers and saw that she was throwing it in Montclair, New Jersey. And the theme for the TEDx was the domino effect. And immediately I felt aligned there because in 2020, my father passed away and he really, really loved dominoes. And not only did he really love dominoes, but he loved the color red. And then other little things too, like I aligned with the theme. I aligned with obviously the color of red, but also like the application deadline was on my mother's birthday. I was like, whoa, like all of this synergy. And because I had already started thinking about what my TED Talk was going to be, I knew I wanted to talk about designing my own career and how all these dominoes had to fall for me to design the career that I have. that's where I was like, immediately, I noticed that first alignment there and I was like, I need to apply. So as far as the actual application, it was pretty simple, pretty straightforward. What I really liked is that they had a dedicated website about TEDx Montclair and the theme. So it gave you context about what the theme was, what are some of the talks that they were looking for. So once I saw the theme and I saw how they described the theme, I already knew, okay, there was going to be alignment with the pitch that I was going to submit. And for the application form itself, it was a Google form and there were a couple short answer questions. I remember there was one that asked, what was your talk description? What's your pitch? They either asked for a rough draft of your talk or an outline and an introduction video. Applications vary per TEDx team. Some people ask for more, some people ask for less. I know there's some people that you have to do like a whole pitching process or maybe there's an interview process, but for mine it was very straightforward. One really good question that came in from my audience is, how did I craft my pitch? And for me, that really started with having that alignment to the theme of TEDx Montclair 2025. So the theme for the show that year was the domino effect, but I already knew, okay, I had all these dominoes that fell for me to create the career that I have now. So I already immediately knew, okay, there was going to be an alignment there, because when it comes to TEDx events, usually there's going to be a set theme for the year and the talks that they curate have to align with that theme. So that's my biggest piece of advice. When it comes to applying for TEDx talks, make sure that your talk aligns with the theme. Because if your talk is a really good pitch and it just doesn't align with the theme that year, that's where you might get passed over. But I think for me, the biggest thing that helped was having that initial alignment with both my talk and its themes, as well as the theme of the overarching event. Another great question that came in was, how did I pick the topic for my talk? And honestly, for me, I always knew I was going to talk about how I designed my dream career, because post-grad, when I started my career, I applied for TikTok with a TikTok resume and I got the job. And anytime I told someone that story, there was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And that was honestly one of the first few dominoes in my career that led to me now living this life as a full-time creator and running and scaling my business. So I knew that that was important to sharing my story as an individual, because that event literally trickled everything that led me up to even this point today, telling this story. Another great question someone asked was, how did I stand out in my application? And for me, the biggest thing was staying true to myself. At the time, my personal brand, it was popping, like people knew me, but I didn't know the application process. I don't know if they were going to evaluate just off of the application itself or looking at the individual or other factors. So I wanted to make sure that I went through that process being authentically Jade. So for that introduction video, instead of just like putting up my camera and just talking to the camera, I decided to lean into my storytelling side, and I created a little vlog just sharing tidbits from my life, sharing my story. And it was kind of my pitch that I submitted with my application in a video format. So I'll also link that down below so you guys can see that. But I was like, let me lean on all my Jade isms, the what makes me me, and show them who I am. Because at that time too, like, looking through the application, you could tell I'm a storyteller. Like, I'm telling the story of my life. Here's a little snippet of what you can expect in that talk. I also wanted to make sure that I align with the specific TEDx organization. For me, I chose New Jersey because of the alignment with just like the coincidences with my dad and my parents and the similarities there, but also just the location. Like Montclair, New Jersey, it's close to home. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I had these like little things that align where I felt like, okay, like I can relate to this area too of where I'm going to do the talk, because for me too, I was talking about themes of grief and talking about themes of being a first-gen student. A lot of people would relate to that who live in that New York City, New Jersey area. So I was thinking bigger than just the theme of the talk, but thinking about like, who is going to be in the crowd? How will my story relate and connect with them? And honestly, something that I didn't really tell many people was that I almost didn't apply because I was letting them imposter syndrome thoughts get into my head. And I'm like, girl, like, what are you doing? Because I was thinking, okay, like, am I even ready to give a TED talk? Like, this is a lot of work. Like, what if I mess up? Like, I was just overthinking every single thing. And I almost didn't apply because I didn't felt like I was ready and had just quit my job. Like, I was dealing with a lot of change. I was just like, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I submitted my application and I was like, you know what? Don't tell yourself no before someone else can tell you no. Because that's something that I tell my audience all the time too when it comes to the job hunt. Like, don't self-reject. So that was my reminder to like take my own advice and not self-reject. As far as the selection process, I want to say that I applied around February 5th or February 6th, and that was it. I applied and I didn't think about it. And I'm someone where like, if I apply for something I really, really want, I will think about it and I'll get anxious. But for this, I didn't. I just like lived my life. And in 2025, and even still now, I'm trying to really trust my intuition, trust my gut. So I kind of felt in my gut that I would have gotten it. But I didn't find out until I want to say like February 26th, February 27th. I was literally sitting in this couch. I would never forget. I was sitting in this couch, bored, watching TV. It was like 4 p.m. And I just happened, I was like, let me check my inbox. And girl, why does email pop up? And I literally screamed. First people I told my best friends, and then I told my mom and my sister, and then I didn't really tell anyone. I wanted to kind of keep it for myself and be a little mysterious. But I remember at that time too, I was just like, yo, like, this is serious. Like, this is legit. I signed the speaker contract that day, and I was like, oh, we are serious. Question that I got that I really loved is, what elements of your personal brand do you think helped you get the opportunity? And ironically enough, they told us after the fact that they did a blind selection process. Like, they didn't want to look at names. They didn't really want to look at portfolios or any of that. They wanted to really focus on the application materials and what you submitted. So the fact that my personal brand of being a storyteller, being an early career advocate, being someone who's first gen, that shined through my application. That is what helped them choose me. And they also said that they really loved my introduction video, which was like, oh my gosh, thanks y'all. So as corny as it sounds, staying true to myself is what helped me stand out. Like, I didn't have to feel like I needed to submit like the perfect application. I did take my time. I had definitely thought about it for like 2 weeks, worked on it for some time. But staying true to myself and incorporating my personal brand, whether or not they were going to like look me up or see what I've done or how many things I've spoke at, I wanted to stay true to who I was as an individual. And that really helped me stand out in my application. We found out that we were accepted. I want to say about a week later, we met as a cohort. So we had this introduction call where we all got to meet each other, and it was really nice. And then the TEDx Montclair team was like, yeah, you guys have 10 days to write your draft. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean 10 days? And it was insane because we had very tight turnarounds. Like, I really like how they were very intentional of like the dates, when was needed, what were the events that we were going to do. And at the time, the event was actually supposed to be in May 2025, but it got pushed to June 2025. And I was like, thank God. But the idea of having to write the talk that I was going to perform in 10 days really stressed me out. And what I really liked was that we had support the entire way. One of the organizers, she actually gave a TED Talk, I want to say like 2-3 years ago. So she was familiar with the whole process. She had even shorter time to write her stuff. So I leaned on her guidance there. And for me personally, girl, I had 6 drafts. Whether it's a TED or the TEDx, they have to be no more than 18 minutes. There are some TED Talks that are longer than 18 minutes, but for TEDx, it's recommended as under 18 minutes because 1, if it's too long, people are going to tune out. And 2, there's no teleprompters. You have to memorize it. It's going to be hard to memorize an 18-minute talk. So in my first few drafts, it was looking a little lengthy. Like, shorty was lengthy. So I really had to do a lot of cutting it down, keeping it juicy, keeping people inspired. So when it came to actually writing, I did have my outline that I leaned on, but also another thing too, girl, I was deep in this book. I was reading this book. This is TED Talks, the official guide to public speaking. I actually bought this literally when I came back from TEDx in 2024. And they give you some insights on like how to approach public speaking, but essentially how to write a TED Talk. So I leaned on it for advice on like how to structure my talk, but I'm also a visual learner. So I was watching some TED Talks and seeing, okay, how do people structure things? How do they have their key main points? What were their hooks? All these things. And I remember at one point, between reading and annotating this book and watching the TED Talks and watching other YouTube videos, I was like, girl, you doing all this research? How about you put pen to paper? So I spent so many hours in this couch, this very couch, in this position. Literally, I had my lo-fi music on. I'm gonna put the exact video that I was listening to because it had that Pomodoro method. I was listening to my lo-fi and I was spending about 3 to 4 hours a day writing. And I want to say I spent a little bit longer too. Like I would spend some time in the morning when my brain is more clear, and then I'll spend some time at night just writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And I remember it was about a week before I was supposed to go to Philly to speak at a conference. I finally submitted my draft and I was very, very proud of her. But I will admit, I was probably still working on little bits of my talk, like tweaks, up until like June, because I'm gonna talk about them when we get to the memorization section. But writing it is one thing, but when you're trying to memorize it, you're like realizing, okay, like maybe I can make this shorter, maybe I can make it a little concise. The question that came in was, how did I frame my TED Talk to make it a TED Talk? And I got the ideas obviously from reading this book, but then also watching the other talks. Because for me, I'm talking about how I designed my career, but I also wanted to give people actionable steps on how they can design theirs. So for me, I had like a 3-step framework that I talk about in my talk. So I watched how people who had like similar steps, whether it was like 7 steps or 3 steps or 5 steps, how did you like write that so it can flow in a way? So that helped me get ideas of how to do that flow and how to create that framing. And another important thing with TED Talks, like you can't just like have a talk about, like you have to have facts, like you had to incorporate facts. So I had to find a way to incorporate facts into my story. And something that I got complimented a lot when we did perform our talks with each other was my fact sandwich. So it was like story, fact, story. And it was like in a good way where it flowed. It didn't just feel like I was just like throwing a fact out there. So I was like, oh my gosh, thank y'all. So I remember I had to do a lot of research to just find like the specific facts that I needed. Like I remember I had a fact on just people not understanding what they want to do in their career. Another fact that I had was about how many jobs that you would typically have in your life, which was a hard fact to find because the Department of Labor, they do studies on it, but it's not like concrete. So I had to like search through different things, but it had to be factual information too, because not only were we had to submit our talks to the TEDx Montclair team, they also had to submit it to TED just to make sure that it was correct, it was right. So yeah. When it comes to like what your TED Talk could be about and what it can't be about, there are certain guidelines that you have to follow. Like you can't be selling something, you can't be overly political, you can't be not factual. So I'm going to share that content guide and that speaker guide down below in the description as well, so you can reference that, because that was something that we also had to reference when we were working on our talks. After the craziest 10 days of my life in March, it was now time to start the memorization process. And honestly, I was so stressed from how short of a time I had to write my talk that when it came down to actually memorizing it, I was like, girl, I don't want to deal with you. Like I had just spent a week. I think they maybe gave us like maybe 2 extra days to work on it. Like I just spent so much time reading and rewriting and reading and rewriting. I didn't want to memorize. Like I just didn't have the brain space to do it. I didn't really start like locking in with my memorization until like that first week of April. I also used this time to be intentional with the speaking engagements that I was going to work on, because I still wanted to strengthen and, get those reps in when it comes to public speaking. But I also didn't want to be so overwhelmed of having to travel so much and do these different talks while having to memorize this big one. Memorizing was actually one of my favorite parts of the process. Like once I got over that mental hurdle, I was starting to lock in. And for my approach was that every few days or so, I was going to memorize a new section. So I went into my talk as a whole and I broke it into different sections. I think I had like 7 core sections. So every few days, I will give myself the chance to memorize, let's say, the introduction or memorize a specific part, and taking it into pieces and chunks like that helped me a lot. So I want to say it would take about 3 to 4 days, depending on the section, for me to memorize it. So once I memorize section 1, I will move on to section 2. And then at one point after those days, I'll do 1 and 2 and back and forth and back and forth. And any free moment that I had, I was memorizing my talk. I was memorizing it. I was practicing in the shower. I was practicing on this couch. I was practicing in the living room. I was practicing at the club. I was practicing at Soul Cycle. Like every moment that I had to like run over my lines and do my lines, I would do it. And I talk to myself a lot. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, do this section and scene. And, you know, just practicing, just constantly getting in the habit of, okay, this is what the talk's going to be. And it's one thing to memorize, but I also had to focus on flow. How was I going to say certain things? How was I going to, you know, talk about it? Or like, you know, when I'm on the stage, how is that going to approach? So I started to think about those things probably, I want to say in like May. So April was really focused on memorizing the content as a whole. And because we had sessions with both our memorization coach as well as our speaker coach, we also got practice doing our talks in front of people. So we had a mixture of both in-person and virtual sessions. So the first section that we did, that was virtual. I remember I was a little nervous because I'm like, okay, I've been practicing and memorizing for myself. I haven't really did it with anyone else. And I remember I did my run through of the talk and everyone was like, I'm not even lying, they loved it. They loved the flow of how I said the talk. They loved the fact sandwich that I had. And honestly, that was a lot of reassurance because I was like, dang, I hope they like my talk. I hope people like my talk and I hope they relate to it. And they really liked it. So once I got that A-OK from my team that they were loving it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And every time I performed it, I got great compliments on it. And something that was helpful for me too is that I had experience with public speaking. I had spoken much larger crowds than what I was going to do that day. But another thing I had to remind myself too, that this was a global stage that I'm going to be speaking on. This video was going to be on TED's YouTube channel, which has over 40 million subscribers. Like the whole world was about to see me. So I had to make sure that I was on point. I pretty much practiced every single day. Like there was rarely a time between March and June that I skipped the practice, like not including the week that it took me to get started. But like once I got started, I was in the flow. A really good question that came in that I loved was, how did I determine what to wear? So I actually was working with a stylist. It loved her personal style and so that she did it for other people. And ultimately, we just didn't see eye to eye with the outfits because for me, my goal was like, okay, I wanted to be a fashionable CEO. Like 2025 was also my year of like really discovering my personal style. And I wanted to find that balance of both showing my personality in my outfit, but then also maintaining that professionalism. I also really wanted to be comfortable too, because for me as like a plus size girly, you know, people can be mean on the internet. So I did have my worries and my fears there of like someone like being mean to me or being in an outfit that looked stiff. So they also recommended like you wear clothing that felt comfortable to you. So when it came to actually deciding on my outfit, I remember I was like literally like on the phone, sad with my sister. I'm just like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to wear. Keep in mind, the talk is in like 2 weeks at this point. And something I really knew I wanted to wear was like these Abercrombie work pants that I have. I love them. They are amazing. I would get them in every color if I could, but the other colors are whack. But I really wanted to wear this one particular pants because it felt comfortable and I felt confident in it, but I needed to find a top. And at that time too, I realized like when it came to like work top and professional tops, like I was always really wearing like satin tops. And the way with the satin tops were is like they were nice and flowy. They didn't cling on to me. And also like the way that the satin kind of bounced off my skin, it added a nice glow. So I found my particular top from Banana Republic with the help of my sister. I found the top itself, but she was like, okay, like think about the outfits that you typically wear. Because even when I was like showing her some of the pieces that the stylist was picking out, she was like, when I see this, this isn't give Jade. Like, I don't think of you. Like, it's not what you typically wear. And that was something else I was feeling too. So I remember when I got the top, I was so freaking happy. Like, it was a very beautiful color. It went really well with my pants. I had this one selfie that I think about often of like when I was trying it on, and just that sense of relief I felt. I'm like, okay, I finally have the outfit. Like, I put in all this work into writing, all this work into memorizing. Now I get to show up in a way that's authentic to me, and I felt confident. So literally, I bought 3 tops because if anything was supposed to happen to that top, I would have been sick. I would have been sick, y'all. So I bought 3 tops, sent 1 to my sister's house, 2 to me, and then it was time to head to Jersey for the show. Yeah, I was ultimately very happy to just have an outfit that really worked with me. And when it came to hair and makeup, I already knew I was gonna do my makeup. I love it. I'm a makeup girly. For my hair, I did braids because I was gonna be going on vacation and it was just easy to maintain. But also, most importantly, too, like, I'm a Black woman. Like, I love a good bust down braids moment. So I was wearing my braids in a style that I loved and an outfit that was related to things that I was already wearing when I go into these professional settings. I was going to do my makeup. Like, it was still Jade. I really wanted to be myself. I didn't want to be someone completely different when I got up on that TEDx stage. So I stayed in Jersey for a week because I'm like, okay, like, I get to hang out with my family. I get to be here and just like take this little vacation, but also giving myself time to like mentally prepare for the big day. And the day before our show, we had a big dress rehearsal. That's where we were all wearing our outfits that we were going to wear the next day. And we were going to see the stage for the first time. And it was really cool. Like, oh my God, I think I have some footage of just like how amazing the stage and specifically the lighting looked. I was like, oh, this is tea. This is so tea. So being there, being on the stage, because that was my first time actually seeing the venue, I was like, oh, this is like real. This is literally real. And it was also another thing too. This is the first time I got this camera because tell me why everything that could go wrong went wrong during that time. I accidentally damaged my Canon G7X when I was coming out the plane. It got water damaged and I immediately had to go get a new camera. So I got this one, the Canon EOS R50, which is perfect. At dress rehearsal, we performed our talks. We went in the order that we were going to go in. And for me, I was going before intermission. So I also knew that I need to have like a good presentation. Like at this point, like people are hungry. Like this is a time where you had to like bring in that energy. And I think that was my biggest thing. I'm like, out of everything that I do during this time, I need to make sure that I represent us Black women because I was the only Black woman in my cohort, but also representing just myself. Like this was my moment to kind of like separate in a way my personal brand as Jade Walters versus the brand of the 9th semester. So I really wanted to make this like debut like the best one possible. So the night of dress rehearsal, we had a big cohort dinner of everyone on the speaker team as everyone just like supporting TEDx Montclair as a whole. And it was really cute. They gave us these custom boxes. It has our name on it. And it was just filled with goodies in here. Like some goodies that was shared. Of course, they had dominoes. Like it was just so cute. And they also gave us these notebooks that said, thank you for coming to our TED Talks. And there's other little mementos of just like things from the Montclair area. So that was super cute and I really liked that. So during my week there, I did spend time with my family. But the day before and the night after the event, I stayed at a hotel that was near the venue called the George. Very amazing hotel. I partnered with them and I'm going to share more details about the hotel in the description. But I needed that alone time to just like, okay, prepare, get ready, decompress. The actual day of the event, there was a lot going on in the city at that time. I think there was a festival, but then there was also a car crash, traffic accident. So we ended up having to push the event back a little later. I want to say like an hour later. So everything was shifted. And once things got started, that's when I'm like, oh, this is like real. This is like legit. And I remember just going out at one point into the space and like I ran into my mom and my sister and I was like, okay, I want y'all to sit here so I kind of know where to go. And like I told you, everything that can go wrong went wrong. It was hot. I broke my camera. And then tell me why I stained my shirt, y'all. I literally got this new perfume, which I love. I'm going to share it below, the KLE, the wedding. And I remember I was spritzing it and I forgot I had a satin top. So my top had all of these wet drops on it. So I remember just like working with my content assistant at the time. She was super nice. I was like, girl, I'm like panicking, like, please help me. And it was just so crazy. I remember I was just like stressed because I'm like, I wanted to go like see everyone talk and do this, but I'm like, I need to fix my shirt because it looks a mess. And thankfully, shout out to the makeup artist, we figured out that using translucent powder was going to help get rid of the drops. So we put our heads together. We had the fans, we had the translucent powder, and we fixed the spots and they were gone. But I remember I was stressed because I'm like, I cannot go up on that stage looking crazy. So despite all the things that went wrong that day, I was still very proud of myself for not only how I was handling all of the stressful stuff, but most importantly, remembering that I prepared as much as I could for that day. Let's just focus on the things that were in my control. So as I mentioned, I went before intermission. So I was the fourth speaker. And y'all, I remember literally, because when it was like the next person, like the person before you going, that's when they're going to mic you up. So I remember when my third person, like the person in front of me was going, they started to mic me up and I was nervous. I was so nervous. And I remember I took this one selfie. This selfie was taken like, I want to say like 2 minutes before I was about to go. And it was like, okay, this is your moment. This is what it's going to look like before you do your talk. And I remember when I went up on the stage and immediately I was happy because, like I told you, the lighting was amazing. It was fire, but it was so bright that I couldn't see anyone. So literally, I mentally transported myself back to my very living room where I'm standing facing the TV, pretending that I'm facing a crowd, and I locked in. Like I remember I had asked this one question. I asked the crowd like, okay, how's everyone doing today? Just to like let that nerves in, just to like lock in. And it really set the tone for me. And because I wasn't able to see anyone, I was just like so happy. But like I told you, I have experience public speaking. So like, I'm working the room, I'm like looking at people, blah, blah, blah. So like they think I can see them, but I can't. So like I'm looking at the crowd and it was just so great. And I remember like I told you, my biggest goal was just to perform really well, not forget anything. And we had our speaker coach, she was in the front row. So if you happen to forget a line, you can look at her. But I told myself, I'm not looking at her. Like I let her down. Wonderful lady. But I wanted to perform this in the best way possible. And I made no major mistakes. The only one mistake that I say I made was like, I just like misspoke and I forgot a word, but like literally nobody knew. Nobody knew. And I remember after I gave my talk, oh my gosh, I got a standing ovation. I was like, ah! So after my talk, it was intermission. I had the standing ovation. I had people coming up to me, telling me how much that they really enjoyed my talk and how much they related to it. Because my talk also covered things that I haven't really talked about out loud. Like I shared my grief story with my dad. I shared about my journey of just trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my career. Like I was sharing things that a lot of people who follow me, they didn't know about. So there were different parts of my talk that people resonated with, whether it was grief or trying to figure out what you want to do in your career or that first gen journey. And having those conversations with people and like hearing how much my talk resonated with them, it meant the world for me because it's like I wanted people to feel seen when it came to my talk. And that's exactly what it felt like. Giving my TED talk was the coolest thing that I've ever done in my life. And I felt so much pride that I poured my heart and soul into this and it came out way better than I could have ever imagined. One of my favorite memories from that night was literally me and my mom and my sister. We went to the local Kentucky Fried Chicken spot because it was like the best one in my sister's neighborhood. And we decompressed in my sister's living room and just talked about the show. Like I was like, okay, like what were people saying? Like what were your thoughts on the talks? Like that's my favorite memory of just like reminiscing on that talk with my family. And it was just so beautiful. So how has life been after my TED Talk? So in June, about 2 weeks later, I went on a solo trip to a resort to decompress, to celebrate my win. And it was kind of around that time where I felt like things started to fall apart in my life. Like I had a lot of projects that were on my plate and I still held that pride that I had for giving my talk, but I felt so exhausted because I had spent about 3 to 4 months writing, preparing, memorizing, preparing for this talk, and now it's going back to reality. And I was also really like decompressing too, like that adrenaline was starting to like decrease and I was like, bro, I'm exhausted. And I remember for my resort trip, it was booty cheeks. Like the resort was not good. I didn't have a good time. And then I was stressed because I had all this work on my plate, which I was very grateful for, like especially being a full-time creator. But I remember I felt so mentally exhausted. Like I don't know why. Like I remember at one point I kind of felt like I was like struggling in life. Like I felt like I was a failure. I don't know what I was going through, but I will never forget. Like I think it was like a month after the talk, like I literally had a whole breakdown. I was like crying. And I think it was just all of this, like, not like a what's next type of thing, because people kept asking me, okay, what's next? What's next? I'm like, girl, I don't want to think about what's next. Like, I just spent 4 months dedicated to this. I needed a time to breathe. And I think for me, that why I felt so sad was because I didn't get time to breathe. Something really cool that came out of giving my TED Talk was that a month before, I was reached out to by the American Marketing Association because they were looking for a speaker for their conference. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, like I would love to do a workshop, blah, blah, blah. They're like, no, girl, we want you to be the keynote. And I'm like, huh? Who? What? Is I've never given a keynote before. And technically, if you count my TED Talk as a keynote, yes. But I've never given a keynote. I've barely even seen keynotes. And I remember I was also like nervous. I'm like, this is big. Like, this is really, really big. I was talking about it with my mentor. I was like, I don't know. Like, can I do this? I've never done before. He was like, girl. So after a conversation with my mentor, I realized, okay, girl, you're tripping. And I decided to accept it. In March, I'm going to be giving the keynote at the American Marketing Association's International Collegiate Conference. And I'm also going to be their youngest keynote speaker ever at 26. So all these big monumental moments are coming from me having the confidence to have just applied to this TED Talk, knowing that I deserve to be in these spaces and that I can put in the work to be in these spaces. So I'm really excited. My keynote's going to be about how I designed my dream career. So a modification of my TED Talk, but still at its core, it is representative of me, Jade Walters, and how I've been able to build my career in marketing. And just having this video that I could watch and I'm like, damn, girl, like relive that moment, and just the joy that I felt was absolutely beautiful. It is such an honor to even have that talk up there. I will say that the waiting game was absolute hell. So we gave our talks in late June, and between then, it was like radio silence. Like, we were told that, they were going to the talks, make sure the edits were right, XYZ. And it wasn't until one random day in October, they were like, yeah, we just submitted your talks. Everything's good to go. And then that same morning, the talks went live on YouTube. So I was like, ah. So my talk right now, of course, I'm going to put it in the description, but it's slowly creeping up to 1,000 views, which is just great. And I've had such great feedback from people about my talk and how much they resonated with it. So it honestly just means the world that this talk that I poured my most of half of 2025 into is one that is out there in the world and people are relating to it. So diving into a couple questions that came in that I wasn't able to weave into this video, but one that was interesting was, were there any red flags to keep watch of when you're applying for TEDx's? And I think for me, I would say looking at, some of their past events, what is the diversity in terms of the talks that were shared in their past events, or the diversity of the speakers. For me, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, a young Black woman, first gen, I'm always going to be looking for diversity, whether it's looking for me, people that look like me in a room, or just other people of color. So if I see that there's no diversity, it's not a room that I want to be in. Another great question was, can you be an early career professional and still apply for a TEDx talk? And the answer is yes. The ultimate goal and the biggest thing that you should think about is just making sure that you have a story worth sharing. So the goal for TED and just even their mission is just having an idea worth sharing. So if you're someone with a really cool story or something that you're really passionate about and you can turn it into a talk, I encourage you to get this talk. And it's even better if you have experience with public speaking, because TED is going to be one of the largest stages that you're going to be able to speak on, whether it's the major TED or the TEDx. So if you're comfortable with regularly speaking in front of people, whether it's workshops or keynotes or panels, when you get up to this stage, you're not going to feel like you're in unfamiliar territory. So another question that is kind of related to this, I think ties in, is how did you decide to pick a topic? So thinking about an idea that is worth sharing, and most importantly, thinking about something you're passionate about. I always encourage people to think of what is a topic that you can talk about for 30 minutes without prep. Whether it's something that you're incredibly passionate about in your work, in your industry, in your culture, or something related to the particular TEDx that you're applying to, that's how you're going to be able to determine your topic. And what is something that you want to be known for? Like for me, I wanted to be known as that girl who designed her dream career and what that looks like, from having a STEM degree to now working in marketing and living this life of doing all the cool things that I want to do in the early career recruitment space. I wanted to share that story and motivate others to know that you don't have to wait for a company or an organization to get your career started. You don't have to wait for anyone's permission to do what you want to do in your career. This is what career ownership looks like in real time. Like, I am someone who is actively designing my dream career. So of course, the number one question that people ask is, how do you find talks to apply to? So for me, like I said, I didn't really go searching for my talk. It found me, but I see a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn too, whether it's like you're connecting with other TEDx organizers and they're sharing out the application, or there's this one creator on Threads. I'm going to put her name on the screen and put the link in the description. She's regularly sharing TEDx events that are happening, I think not only around the country, but around the world. So there are people out there that are doing that work of curating talks that you can apply to. But like I said, most TEDx's, they're in different cities or in different neighborhoods. Like I know there's like a TEDx Chicago. There's one for CUNY in Brooklyn. There's one in Washington, DC. There are different places of where you can apply. So start with like your city, start with your state, and start your search there of like, okay, what are the TEDx's in my area? And that's a wrap. I hope this video has been incredibly helpful for you as someone who's aspiring to be a TEDx speaker. And if this video has helped you and you're taking the tips that I've shared and you land a TEDx talk, please, 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 please let me know. These are all the things that I wish that I knew when I was in this process. And it is a very rewarding process. It's a very rewarding accomplishment. And I'm rooting for you guys. And of course, make sure you check out my TED Talk, y'all. You can definitely find it linked in the description with all of the other links that I said that I'm going to share. And if you're not already, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post content about early career, professional development, life in my 20s. I'm excited to be on this YouTube journey, and this is such a great video to continue that on. So I'm wishing you guys the best of luck in your TEDx journey.